one at a time, and we'll get the job done. Y'all know what to say. On three. 1, 2, 3.
And the home of the Jets.
What is going on, everybody? It's been a minute from my streaming. I've been extremely busy, so I let the experts take care of all the streaming. The guys like Ryan and Matt and Green Bean, all the experts, Jake. But now that I got a chance, I got to talk to you, man. You're my go-to draft guy. So what's up, Ryan?
Dude, I'm excited to talk. I love chopping it up with you. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on where the Jets currently stand, how we have went through free agency, and what your thoughts are on the draft, because it just seems like it's so polarizing right now for Jet fans. I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, but I mean, going into this offseason, they had a lot of holes they had to fill, and you're kind of worried, like they had a lot of holes, but not a lot of resources. Can they do it with, not exorbitant cap space, no second round pick? Like, how can they do this? Overall, were you impressed with Joe Douglas has done so far?
Yeah, I'll be honest. The first few days of the tampering period and free agency, I was definitely concerned. I was like, oh, okay, we're not really doing anything. And, we're hearing little dribs and drabs. And then I think for me, when it switched was the trade for Morgan Moses. Once that happened, it was like Joe Douglas is cooking right now, because 1 year, $5.5 million for a guy that's healthy all the time. Dude played through a torn pec this past year and still played 73% of the snaps. That was really cool to see. Then obviously getting Tyron Smith and getting Mike Williams, I think those were exactly the moves every Jet fan, if you could plug in hey, if we could get those two bookend tackles, not even thinking Morgan Moses really.
Yep.
And then Morgan Moses, I think, is better than any of the tackles that were out in free agency, especially on a pound for pound contract perspective. And the contract that Tyron Smith signed, it's if he's healthy, he gets paid. If he's not, he doesn't. It's absolutely perfect. Mike Williams, little concerning maybe with him not being ready for, training camp or maybe potentially the start of the season. But I really like the way Joe Douglas has approached this.
Now, just sticking to the offensive line for a second, I was surprised, but Morgan Moses made a lot of sense. These are win now moves for a win now team, because it's only 1 year left. So we could have the same problem next year. Oh, we need a left tackle, we need this, we need that. What is your level of concern with the injury risk and the depth behind the guys they sign? To me personally, I would still sign Bakhtiari if he wants to come out and pass the physical. We'll talk draft in a little while, but are you comfortable with the starters as they are? Because you also have AVT coming off another injury. Do you want more depth behind there? Do you feel comfortable? You know what? If these guys play 14 games, I'm cool with that. He misses 3, we'll figure it out. What's your approach with the current offensive line?
Yeah, so I definitely want more depth. And I think the way the Jets are sort of trying to operate is let's plug holes in free agency and set ourselves up the best way we can to go best player available in the draft. And then I do think they're going to bring back McGovern, which will give us some interior offensive line assistance. If AVT is not good to go, then hey, McGovern kicks back inside. Tippmann probably gets bumped outside to guard. Same thing with Wes. Wes has the same positional flexibility. So that would be 3 guys, guard center hybrid. As far as the tackles are concerned, I'm with you. I want Bakhtiari. I think that would be a really smart move to make, especially if he's not signed, going into July or training camp. It's all right, well, if you're clearly not going to be a starter, do you want to come play with your best buddy, compete, probably not compete, but be the swing tackle for us. And God forbid we lose Tyron Smith. I wouldn't even mind signing him to the same exact deal that Tyron Smith got. Yep. And it's hey, if Tyron's out, guess what, Bakhtiari, you play like a starter, you're getting paid. Or even if you just start the game, you're going to get paid. Now, as far as the injury concerns to Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith and AVT, I'm definitely a little concerned with. The Achilles is always something that's concerning for sure. With Morgan Moses, played 99% of the snaps every single season up until this past year, plays 73% with a torn pec. So I'm confident he's at the very least going to play 73% of the time at a good level. And that's fine for me. Tyron Smith hasn't played a full season since 2015. And that's kind of what we keep hearing. It's you got to load up in the draft or you're bringing, insurance for him. But when you look back at those games that he hasn't started, it's games that are spot starts. It's not like he's having season-ending injuries. He's played in all 7 of the Cowboys playoff games, so he's healthy when it matters most. So for me, I like Carter Warren as a backup spot fill-in for either one of those guys right now. Right. I don't think we're done. Like I said, McGovern, Bakhtiari would make me feel a lot better, but I'm not nearly as concerned with offensive line. I'm definitely thinking a little more weapon at number 10, I think.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. Now with the offensive line, one of my biggest complaints was the offensive line coach, the scheme, Hackett, and everything else. And now you have these veterans. Do you trust Sal to say, listen, we can't grind these guys. We can't do all these, rotating them all over the place and all these crazy drills. We got to like preserve them for the regular season. Ideally, you want to all play together at some point, have chemistry and communication. But like, you trust the Jets to actually have on a legit maintenance plan where you don't risk stupid injuries?
I think it's good that the Jets are in constant contact with the Cowboys right now, trying to figure out how Tyron Smith was able to like prolong, the health throughout a season and like how he trains throughout. I think it's cool that they're communicating back and forth. I do want to keep everyone in their own spots. I mean, it's amazing that the Bills didn't lose a lineman until the final playoff game that they were in. Like, we lost linemen left, right, and center. It's
every week.
Yeah, it's 12, 13, 14 guys, whatever we had. So I do expect Douglas to carry 10 offensive linemen this year. That would be one more than we carried last season. He said that at the end of his postseason presser that's something he could have changed. So I expect that to happen. But yeah, look, the coaching staff is something that I think we should be concerned with. I don't really like Keith Carter. That was the one guy I was kind of hoping to see let go. I thought it would impede us from getting offensive linemen. Now trading for Morgan Moses is, he didn't have a choice. He's just coming here.
Yep.
But I was surprised we got Tyron Smith. I really was.
Yeah, I was shocked. Now, are you concerned that there were no other teams reportedly interested other than the Jets and Cowboys? Because he figured he was like, in theory, he's the premier left tackle on the market. Me personally, I thought his market was going to be crazy expensive, where like he priced himself out of most areas where it's like, listen, I can kind of go back to the Cowboys. Are you concerned about the rumors about him? Like only 2 teams are interested?
I don't know. I guess it depends how many teams inquired. Because if teams didn't inquire because they assumed the price would be so high for the premier left tackle, and I definitely thought he was going to go back to the Cowboys. So I don't know how much I would have poked around it, I guess. And I feel like we did, like us or the Chiefs, I feel like made the most sense for him to go to. Yep. Like, hey, I'm going to try and chase a ring. Let's go to a veteran roster, someone that's we're desperate for a tackle, so he's probably going to get a good deal from us. I mean, if you look at it, he's still going to get paid a lot of money if he starts every game. He's going to get I think it's close to $20 million if he plays every game. So it's still not a cheap contract, but I'm not concerned. I think he played well. You just gotta have a little bit of depth there just in case.
Now, what do you think about the left guard position? Because Tomlinson was a guy that got paid big money and was kind of disappointing where he didn't, for a variety of reasons, contract, level of play, came here as a, potential Pro Bowler or Pro Bowler, didn't reach those expectations. They swap him out and it's like, all right, do you think it's an upgrade that they have now? Or is it going to be like, what level of play expect the left guard now?
I mean, I guess it's similar-ish to like, you base it off the contract, right? Like, so if Tyron's or if not Tyron Smith, if Tomlinson was getting, I think he was supposed to get like $15 or $16 million this year. I don't know. There's some nice plays that I like from Simpson. I do like that we took 2 players off one of the best offensive lines in the country. So that's pretty solid. I don't know. He's got to clean up the penalties a little bit, but it's hard to envision a guard be worse than what we got out of Tomlinson. So, I like what Oscar's saying, the nasty element. That's something our offensive line has kind of been missing. Like McGovern always kind of rubbed me the wrong way when he would walk away from Zach after he got hit. Like, I want someone spitting nails. Like, I'm okay taking a penalty if like you're going to like stand up for your guys.
Yep. No, I agree. Especially your quarterback's getting beat up and everybody's just watching him get beat up. Like, fight back a little bit, have some just that. I definitely agree with that. The penalties are concerning. Now looking at the wide receiver position, to me, this is still a concern for me. And I like the Mike Williams move, but not knowing when he's going to be ready makes me nervous because this is the perfect world. Oh, he's going to be ready for this date. Like one minor setback. And you're like, all right, Alan Lazard, get rid of the soccer ball and let's catch some footballs. But I think I would still make other moves. Like I'm surprised Tyler Boyd. I mean, I haven't checked the news today, but Tyler Boyd was out there, Beckham, other guys like that. I keep stacking pieces, dude. I'm not happy with this. I can respect Brownlee. I can respect Gibson, but I want more weapons for Aaron Rodgers, like legitimate, proven pass catchers, route runners. You know what I mean? Where do you stand with the wide receiver group?
Yeah, I definitely want another offensive weapon for sure. And I think at this point, we're probably just waiting till after the draft, seeing what shakes out. The draft is just so many good wide receivers that I think that's why Boyd and why Odell are still out there. Because I feel like if you're going to pay Odell, north of $10 million, you could get someone that you think might be comparable to Odell for significantly cheaper. So I think that's sort of the same thing we'll see with the safeties. A lot of those guys are kind of hanging out there, wait until probably after the draft. But you got to add someone. I like Odell from like an explosive perspective. And if he's like, the guy in the slot or, take the top off a defense, that's fine. I like Boyd a lot as a big slot, but I think there's a lot of directions the Jets can go early on, particularly, round 1 or round 3. There's going to be a lot of good receivers. Like I like Brendan Rice in the 3rd round as well. So I would go a few different ways.
Ashton Davis comments, sorry I'm late, guys. Just signing my contract. No problem, Ashton. We just welcome back. We appreciate it. Now, with the wide receiver, it's really interesting, man. Like I want playmakers so bad. You want, the full Aaron Rodgers experience. Then you look at the defensive side of the ball where it's like this defense, in theory, could be better than last year. Mm-hmm. Now, what was your take on the exchange of Huff and Reddick? And I'll give you a disclaimer where I hated the way the Jets handled Huff. I think they completely screwed up like 3 different times, letting him leave. But if you had a pivot, I'm a Reddick fan. I actually like him a lot. I liked him the last 3 or 4 years. Every time he became available, I'm like, trade for him, get him, sign him. Like, I want him. What is your thoughts on how that they swapped the 2 players out?
So it was definitely a roller coaster. I don't like how we handled Huff last season with the 2nd round tender. I thought it should have been a 1st round tender. You want to imply that you're going to keep the guy. It was only a difference of like $2 million or something like that. I would have tried to re-sign him, but 2nd round tender says, hey, we want someone to take you away from us. So we don't want you. Oh, and by the way, we're going to draft your replacement at 15 overall. That was like, it threw me over the edge. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. we made that selection. And then you go into the preseason, he's playing late into fourth, into the 4th quarter in the last preseason game. It's like, man, they really don't care about you. And you just want to, they're just trying to get someone to bite on you. And then even at the trade deadline, like for me, if you knew you were going to lose Huff, why not trade him at the trade deadline? And get something. That was my biggest like gripe with it. So once the trade deadline came and went, it's like, okay, cool. Let's franchise tag him and trade him. I understand we've invested the pick in Will McDonald. We've got Jermaine Johnson already. Totally cool. But then we didn't franchise tag him. We just let him walk. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So super salty on that. I was bitter. Yep. And then I did not think we would get Reddick for the price we got him for. The contract really isn't too crazy. I think it's a year, $14-15 million, somewhere in that ballpark. So you save a few bucks off, I guess, the average salary for Huff, because Huff's contract this year, I think, is like $4 million cap hit, $7 million next year. And then like the 4th year that he's not on the Eagles is like $25 million. It's like, it's a weird swing. But with Reddick, you get him in a contract year. And I don't want them to restructure a contract. I don't want them to extend him. I want him to play on that 1-year deal with his back against the wall, play with his hair on fire, and then I would franchise tag him after the season or transition tag him, whatever you want to do. But I would hold on to him after the year because I'm seeing this as a 2-year window for the Jets. That's why they signed Tyrod Taylor for 2 years. That's why they got John Simpson for 2 years, Morstead for 2 years, Zerline for 2 years. They restructured CJ Mosley, so he's coming back for 2 seasons. I think Conklin's probably going to get restructured after the draft. I think there's a little gamesmanship going on there where they do like him a lot, but if they don't restructure his contract, it kind of implies, they might go Bowers. So maybe they want to go a different direction and they kind of want to make it skew that way. Maybe they want to make people think they're going to go offensive line. That's why McGovern hasn't come back. Maybe why Bakhtiari hasn't signed, unless it's just a physical thing for him. So as far as like the edge rusher stuff goes, I think I'm very excited for Reddick. I think he's what we hoped Huff would become. And we are getting him at just such an elite time right now. Like this is really good. I think it's an upgrade from Huff. It's just, you see, it's more of a win now move as opposed to a let's build towards the future move.
Yeah, I love the pivot for him, man. Like the Huff situation pissed me off to no end, but I'm like, all right, that's a lot. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, especially for the value contract. Like the one thing Joe Douglas has done is he successfully added all these pieces without like mortgaging your entire future. You didn't give away all these draft picks. You're not in cap hell. I mean, not from these moves at least. So it's like it's all like being responsible, which is great. If you look at the safety position, it's interesting because Ashton Davis comes back today. We all wanted him back he's improving every year, which is remarkable. Good on special teams. You have Tony Adams, who the Jets love. I saw Trevor ask a question about too. Chuck Clark is interesting because we were all high on him last year. He gets hurt. Now he's coming off an injury. Are you concerned at all about their safety position? And can you see JBC getting reps who didn't play at all last year because he was hurt?
Yeah, I think he definitely will. I think there's going to be a lot of reps to go around. I love the re-signing of Ashton Davis. That was someone I very much wanted to bring back. He's just always around the ball. Just really impressive player. He only played 19% of the defensive snaps, so I would like to hope that he's competing for a starting safety role this year with some improved play. But he played like 89 or 8, I think it was 83% of the special team snaps, which is really, really cool because they just changed the rules for the kickoff now. And now those special teams players are going to have a much more impactful impact on the game. I mean, whether it's him returning or him like being near the returner that could catch an end around, and there's going to be some trickery that goes on with these new kickoffs. It's really exciting. I think he's just starting to get better and better. And if you had told me after the first year that Ashton Davis would be the best player from that draft, I wouldn't have believed you. But him and Bryce Hall were like the two best guys from that draft.
Which is crazy. And I wanted Ashton Davis cut, I think, every year, just because I was so pissed off that he was there not doing anything. Mm-hmm. But now it's interesting because they bring him back. They're high on Irv Charles in terms of special teams, and Justin Hardy's gone. And he was the kind of guy that I just kind of assumed he's coming back. Like, captain, leader. I hate the penalties he had. He always had the untimely penalty, but like a very respected guy, Pro Bowler. Are you surprised that they didn't bring him back, or was it a money thing and he wanted to go home?
So I don't think it was a money thing. I think for me, when I'm looking at Hardy, I did think they were going to bring him back for sure. I think the signing of Isaiah Oliver and having Irv Charles, Isaiah Oliver is going to be that kind of backup slot corner and then also going to be a special teamer. So you're kind of saving a roster spot because we lose Javelin Guidry. He's not back. Yep. And you lose Hardy, but you replace both those guys with one player. So if the Jets are trying to keep, maybe they want to carry 3 quarterbacks this year, which is something they did not do last year. At the beginning part of the season, it was just Rodgers and Zach. I would prefer them to carry 2. I don't like the idea of carrying a 3rd quarterback. And I think allowing Hardy to leave, one, he's a really good player for us, and him leaving helps us with the comp formula because someone's going to sign him away. Obviously, he goes to the Browns. I really like him. I didn't want to see him go, but I understand the chess match that I think is being played there.
Yeah, I can see it too. Do you think there's any world where Mekhi Becton can come back on like some kind of incentive-laden deal?
I do. And, I keep getting weird looks for thinking this. I think it could be more likely that he comes back than Bakhtiari comes in, just because I could see Bakhtiari trying to get a starting spot somewhere else. And for me, Becton, a year removed, like having that year of playing again, and his positional flexibility of left tackle, right tackle is kind of exactly what I would prefer to have right now, at least for one season. So if you can get him on an incentive-laden deal, now I don't know if the Jets want him back. It felt like it was very much a mutual kind of split there, and he kind of made a few comments about Keith Carter on the way out. Yep. So I don't know if I see it necessarily, but Aaron Rodgers has kind of taken him a little bit under his wing. So maybe if he's still unsigned, early summer, maybe that's a move they consider making. I would like to explore it at the very least, see what it would cost. If you can get him sub, $5 million, I think it's at least a good depth move.
Yeah, because I thought initially that he wanted to change the scenery bad. Like he did his part here. He felt disrespected the way they handled him in training camp, always bouncing around, and he wanted to play left. They had him at right, and they had him at 3rd string, 2nd string, all the games they played with him. I kind of thought, I want out. But then I'm like, you know what? The whole Aaron Rodgers thing, he hasn't signed anywhere else. Depending on how the draft plays out, it could be interesting there. The one interesting thing on free agency, I want to get your thoughts on this, is running back, where I kind of want a veteran running back behind Breece Hall. And the reason why is just like a guy that can just take 5-6 carries, short yardage, goal line, but a guy that knows blitz pickup, good in pass protection, because I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers running for his life. We like Izzy, but Izzy is a project, and he's still uncertain with certain things. So it's like, would you prefer a veteran running back behind Breece, or would you rather say, no, we can just go draft a guy and just plug and play with him?
So I'd probably wait till after the draft to sign someone, because there's a running back I really like in the draft that I think is going to be there in the 4th round that I would love to pull the trigger on, that I think could be a starter on this team. God forbid something happens to Breece, and is also a very good complement to Breece. And that's Braylon Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin. He's 6'2" or 3. I think it might be 3. And he's also only 20 years old. And he's going to be 20 years old until January 20th. So his entire rookie year, he's not going to be allowed to consume alcohol. Like That's how young this kid is. So that would be my preferred route if we can wind up getting him or someone of that similar, cut. Because I like the 4-year cheap contract. I like that Douglas has taken a running back in every single draft. But if I'm going the veteran route, and we don't go, running back in the draft, I would like to go after Zeke Elliott. I think that would be a smart move. I think he's really good in blitz pickup. I think he's that goal line bruiser of a back that you could utilize, if you want to try and keep Brees a little bit fresher. He's obviously not the guy he was back in Dallas, but I think we do need a running back too, for sure. And I don't know is Kareem Hunt still out there?
I think he is. Yep.
That would be one I would also kind of poke around at if Zeke signs somewhere else. But I think Braylon Allen's my top back that I would like to get.
Yeah, I definitely want another guy, but this blitz pickup is huge. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers back there. Like, I want a ton of pass catchers and a ton of guys that can protect them, because other than that, I'm gonna have a heart attack. Now, going into the draft, I think Joe Douglas has done a good enough job where it's like there's flexibility, because we can argue all day long about number 10 pick and going everything else. So can you say there's like a huge need going in this draft? Like you say, there's one glaring need, like the one thing he's got to get coming out of this draft class. What would it be?
So I think you need insurance on the offensive line, and I think you need a weapon. I don't think it necessarily has to be a wide receiver, but it's interesting to see how the first 9 picks play out, right? Like before us, I kind of envision, 4 quarterbacks going.
Yep.
I think at least 2 of the wide receivers are going to go. I think Alt goes, and I think 1 defensive player at Atlanta goes. And then we get to the Bears at 9, and that's where I'm not so sure where they go, because they're almost a mirror image of us. Their coaching staff is on the hot seat. They got to win now. They took a Chargers receiver in Keenan Allen. We've got the Chargers receiver Mike Williams. And then it's a matter of what do they want to do at 9. They only have 4 draft picks total in this draft. Could they want to trade out? I think they're a more likely trade partner with some of the teams behind us, because they might be willing to take a lower package than what we may be wanting to take. Yeah. But if that's the case, what direction do they go? I've been looking at Mock Draft Database, which shows a bunch of like aggregated mock drafts from Bear sites and other popular publications. And since March 1st, 41 of the mock drafts that have been published, 56% of them have the Bears taking defensive line. So maybe that's Jared Verse, going just in front of us. And that could also, make you think maybe there's a situation where they trade down a little bit, because I think the Vikings could come up for a quarterback up to like number 4, maybe 5. And then I don't know if there's going to be another edge taken until like you start talking Broncos, Raiders, depending on what direction they want to go. So they could trade out and still get a pretty good edge rusher. I think they could stay put and take the edge, which means I think Odunze, Bowers, and Fotanu are going to be the 3 guys that we're really going to key in on there. And from the contractual standpoint, I really like Odunze a lot. I love that him and Garrett are friendly. I like that he's that big 6'3" frame, contested catch guy, number 1 in deep balls. I think that's really exciting. With Bowers, I would love to go that route as well. He would probably be my number 2. Just the tight end thing does scare me a little bit, but I'm not trying to think about him so much as a tight end. I'm thinking about him as a big slot. Like imagine a situation where you now have an offense where you have, Garrett Wilson out wide, Mike Williams out wide. You got Bowers in the slot. You got Conklin in line, and then you got Brees behind you. Yep. Now you've got Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, and Bowers, who are all home run threats. And when you look at how Aaron Rodgers got his last MVP, most of that, 52 or 53% of his total yards on the season were all yak yards. Yeah. So you very much want to get the ball into your playmakers' hands. And for guys that are like nervous about the offensive line and what happens if we lose someone, Miami has a shit offensive line. It's been terrible the last few years. How do they neutralize it? They get the ball out fast. And like 50% of Bowers' catches happen behind the line of scrimmage, which means he's getting out real quick and the ball's just getting dumped off to him. So I think he's a different kind of threat that would really create some interesting mismatches that the Jets could take advantage of. I understand why people don't want to go tight end in the top 10 because of the issues that have basically been first round tight ends overall. But I would ask you this. If you knew who Kittle would be, would you take him top 10? If you 100%. Knew who Kelsey would be, if you knew who Laporta would be, if you know who Mark Andrews would be, the 4 tight ends that were in the final 4 games, or the final 4 teams of our last NFL season, you would take them top 10, no questions asked. So I would argue that it is an evaluation deficiency in the NFL GMs and front offices for the tight end position, and not so much a detriment of taking tight end in the top 10.
Especially when you have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback who could take advantage of his skill set. It's not like you have a young quarterback that's just, trying to survive the NFL and trying to survive an offense. You have one of the best of all time that can read, react, and do things and just maximize his potential. But how do you How do you rank the offensive linemen? Because I think everybody has all. I think you figure the top two are going to be gone. Is there an offensive lineman that could fall to 10 that you're like, you know what, I got to take him, or is it just like what's your line where it's like, you know what, after this I'm ready to move on from the position. I can get better value in the third round or later.
So I like a lot of the offensive linemen. I think you could argue that the offensive lineman could provide a more critical role than one of the weapons, because I think I like more receivers in the second and third round than I do offensive linemen that late. I think you start getting a little thinner once you get out of like the top 50 picks or so with offensive line. I really like Alt. I think so. If Alt's there at 10, I'm cool with taking Alt. No questions asked. Like just plug him in and let's roll. But I think the interesting question is, like, if the Jets were to make a move into the top 5, what would you want? I feel like I'd be disappointed if Alt was the pick.
Me too.
It's totally wacky.
Yeah.
So for me, Alt's the only one that I'm strongly thinking about taking at 10. I think outside of that, I would prefer a trade down. Like if you can get me to move down to 12, 13, somewhere along there, maybe 15 to the Colts. That might be a little bit too far for me. Well, not if you're going to go offensive line, but as far as ranking it, Fatanu, or however you say his name, he would be number 1 on my list. I think having that positional flexibility of guard tackle hybrid gives you the ability to push Morgan Moses, who's on a 1-year, $5.5 million contract. That doesn't have to be a starter. Yeah. And then push John Simpson, who has a 2-year contract, but could really be a 1-year and out kind of player. So you're building for the now in the insurance side of things, and also for the future at whatever position, whether it be, hey, Tyron's going to hang it up at the end of this season. Okay, cool. Let's re-sign Morgan Moses. He's going to come back another year. Fatanu, okay, you're going to be left tackle. Warren, you're either going to be a swing tackle or we're going to help develop you. That was one of my favorite things, I think, is that, by going with these 1-year contracts, you're giving Fatanu or you're giving Warren a chance to kind of develop. Now, if you trade down, I'm cool with Latham. I'm cool with Amarius Mims. I'm cool with Tyler Guyton. I'm cool with Talese Funga. I think there's a lot of really good tackles that are there, and it just kind of depends on what you're picking up and where you're drafting. Like for me, if you go down to like 22 with the Eagles, now you're looking at Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton, and you're kind of redshirting them for a year. If you fall to like 12, 13, it's probably Fatanu, maybe Talese Funga, something like that.
Now, how do you rank the wide receivers? Like, I think we all know Martin Harrison's going to be gone. I mean, but it's like Neighbors, Odunze. Like, I don't think they're going to. Maybe I'm just like, I don't think they're going to be available at 10. Do you think one of them could fall to 10?
I think Odunze is going to fall to 10. That's kind of. I do. I think one of the 3 will. That's more my thought process. So let's play this out real quick. The Broncos, the Vikings, Broncos, and Raiders are all potentially considering trading up for a quarterback.
Yep.
The Chargers very much, I think, want to trade out of number 5. Any of those teams are going to have to get in front of the Giants, because I think the Giants could be where McCarthy could go, or quarterback 4, whoever that's going to be. So by that alone, you think, okay, well, the Vikings can get up to 5. The Broncos and Raiders are not going to trade up with a division rival. So they are going to have to come up to number 4. So if the Cardinals are trading out, that means quarterbacks, and whether it's the Broncos and Raiders or the Vikings that now have to come up to 4 because those other teams are coming up as well.
Yep.
You're looking quarterback 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if we say the Chargers stay at 5, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the pick. I think ideally they want to trade down and probably go right tackle, try to build that offensive line.
They need a receiver bad, man. They lost everybody.
They do, but I think if they can get the Vikings 2 first-round picks, I think they would rather take a top tackle at 11 and then a wide receiver at 23.
That's fair.
But if they stay at 5 because someone else trades in front of them, they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yep.
At that point, I think the Giants are not going to reach for a quarterback. I think they go Malik Neighbors.
Yep.
The Titans go Joe Alt. The Falcons go Dallas Turner, some type of defensive position.
Yep.
Then I think the Bears is where it gets interesting. And that's where you start seeing them, that 56% chance of taking a defensive lineman. Yep. Compared to only 12% taking Odunze, which was really interesting to me. So I think Odunze is going to be there for the Jets at 10, and that would be my pick. If he's not, I'm cool with Bowers being there.
So Odunze versus Bowers, you'd take Odunze then?
I would. I like the $20 million or $25 million wide receiver per year savings as opposed to, and that's not taking anything away from Bowers. It's just, I really like Conklin a lot. I think he's going to have like probably 700-800 yards this year, and we're going to be real happy with it. And that's not to say I wouldn't go Bowers, because it's almost the same argument of like, oh, well, you had Michael Carter, you liked him, but you still took Breece Hall.
Yeah.
So and especially with us last year, rumored to take Michael Mayer at number 50.
Yep.
And so that to
makes
me,
it interesting. Yep. Exactly.
that's tight end. They rumored to want Jahmyr Gibbs, which is a home run threat. And that's kind of what Bowers is. Bowers sort of encapsulates everything that those two players were last year, just at a hybrid kind of position. So when I'm looking at the receivers, it's those three. I really like Brian Thomas Jr. a lot. I would say it's the top three, then a slight drop down to Brian Thomas Jr. Then after that, it starts getting a little murky. It's kind of depending on your flavor of the week. Do you like Troy Franklin? Do you like Adonai Mitchell? Do you like Xavier Worthy? Do you like Lad McConkey? Things of that, those guys. I like the second round receivers once you get out of the top 4 receivers, I think.
Now, is there any situation where you can see the Jets trading up?
I do. So
really,
yeah, it depends what it costs, though. I don't love the idea of moving up, I'll be honest. But if you could say the quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3, 4, and the Chargers want to drop back from 5, I'm cool going up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. If you want to do that, that's the 6'4" receiver, the legacy line of like, hey, that his dad was Hall of Famer in this league. He's been groomed from birth on how to play, how to train, how to do everything the right way. Yep. And he played with Garrett Wilson. So like, that's the one player I think I would come up for. And that's not to say I wouldn't want to make a move up for for Neighbors or Odunze. Like, let's say the Falcons want to swap picks, and maybe we give them John Franklin Myers. We shed a contract, give it to them, and then, we take our receiver there. I would be open to it. I don't really want to give up the 2025 first, but if you can get it done for a 2025 second and maybe some other, maneuvering around, I could get on board with that.
Now, the one thing like I kind of fall into is like trading back, where like I want to recover. We all want to recoup the second round pick. Whether that's possible or not, I'm not sure. But what are your at what point do you say, you know what, I want to trade back? And do you think there's gonna be teams that are willing to come up? You talk about everybody wants a quarterback, Vikings, everybody else. Do you think the Jets at 10, are they too far back where teams are like, you know what, you're too far down. We need to go above you to get the guy we want?
So I think I think the top 4 guys are going to go off the board 1, 2, 3, 4 at the latest 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Then you're talking Bo Nix and Michael Penix. I really like Michael Penix a lot, but the 2 knee injuries, the surgically repaired throwing shoulder, that gives me a little bit of like uneasiness. Do the Broncos or Raiders want to trade up with us? I think the Bears are going to, like, even if they're willing to trade up, I think the Bears would take the exact same package that we would take. And by virtue of that, we're not going to have that trade down option. So I think if we're going to have to go down, it's going to be for probably a top defensive player that's there. And it's a team maybe like the Eagles trying to come up from 22. And that's a little bit further than I really feel comfortable going down. I don't think the Jets are realistically going to be able to trade down in this draft.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. It's like not having a second round pick blows, because it's like, just say in theory you take an offensive lineman in the first round. You're like, then you got to really hope that third round receiver hits, because that's where you want to get him. You have a lot of faith in that. You like the third round receivers. To me, it's like if we get offensive linemen in the first round, I'm trying to trade up in the third round, come up into the second somewhere. Like, I want a package come up and kind of get a guy we want instead of waiting for the draft to fall to you. You know what I mean?
I agree. And I would use, if you go offensive lineman in the first, I think I would trade the 2025 second and our third round pick to go up as high as we can, get a Xavier Legette or someone like that. I want a bigger bodied, almost like an AJ Brown style of player. I don't know how much I love Tez Walker, but I like some of the receivers in the third round, but that's more, I think I would have felt more comfortable if Mike Williams was definitely going to be ready.
Yep.
Now I feel like we need another weapon. And Bowers, to me, is a really intriguing one because it gets Lazard off the field. And it also, like, I mean, you can utilize him in so many different ways. They ran him at halfback, wide receiver, tight end.
Lazard gets Lazard off the field.
Oh, my God. Yeah, dude. It wouldn't shock me if they were like, hey, June 1st cut. Like, you're gone. Yeah, I don't know. If we were to get a second round pick, I want to go with an offensive lineman. Or if we were to trade down, I would go with the offensive lineman in the first at that point. And I like a lot of the second round receivers because I do think those guys could be impact day one starters, where the third round, you're probably playing a little bit with fire.
Now, what is your take on drafting a quarterback? We see a lot, like every time the Jets are visiting with somebody, like, oh, we got to get a guy in the third round, fourth round. I'm like, I'm not going that high. Like, if you want to go later and draft like a project that could sit and watch Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor for 2 years, I'm cool with that. But to me, I want my resources spent elsewhere. And this is assuming Zach Wilson's gone. Like, I can't see him being here. But like, what are your thoughts on drafting a quarterback?
So I like that we're talking to Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jaden Daniels. And I don't know if we were talking to Penix at all, but I like that the Jets are poking around those particular quarterbacks because those are guys that are going to go in front of you. And not just that, you're going to hear rumors from them about the teams behind you, 11, 12, 13. Right. So you're trying to gauge what type of interest there is in those quarterbacks that teams may want to come up for. So I am not on board with quarterback in the first or third round. The fourth round is where I start to consider it. And I think the popular name, obviously we had him in for a top 30 visit today, was Jordan Travis, the quarterback out of FSU, broken leg or broken ankle or whatever towards the end of the season. Wasn't able to, they didn't make the playoffs because of it. He's the guy that I would take a look at. And I would say, okay, if I want to hold two quarterbacks this year, I think you could IR Jordan Travis at the end of training camp and stash him, give him a legitimate redshirt year. Because realistically, if we have to go down to our third quarterback, I just want him handing off the ball to Breece Hall. Like, I don't care at that point.
Yeah, me too.
And not to mention, there's something to be said, I think, for having a leader on our defense in Jermaine Johnson, who very much likes Jordan Travis. So if you bring that guy in, there's some sort of like synergy that's already somewhat within the locker room. And I think that's really interesting. I do like Michael Pratt as that one comment, popped up. I think Spencer Rattler's interesting. I don't know if I love some of the off the field concerns that I feel like I've heard rumors of. Outside of that, once those guys are gone, I don't know where I'd go. Like, I don't mind like a late round swing on like a Joe Milton, who's like crazy athletic, but like can't hit the broadside of a barn. Yep. So like, I would say the fourth round is the earliest I would consider quarterback.
Now, the interesting thing with this offseason is like everybody's kind of giving Joe Douglas a lot of credit. We did earlier on, like he did a lot of good moves, win now team. Do you think the way he's setting up this offseason and this team is kind of putting a lot of pressure on Saleh now? Like, listen, I did my job for us to win 11 games this year. Now it's your job to coach them up and maximize their potential. Could there be a situation where now it's like, it's on you, coach? Like, this is where kind of like our focus goes to Saleh now instead of Douglas?
So I do think there is a little bit of that going on, but at the same time, I could almost feel like, and maybe it's Douglas's moves make me feel like he's confident he's coming back after this year. And I just sort of applied it to Robert Saleh as well. Cause I think as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy, everyone's coming back. I think most people probably feel that way. I don't think, I mean, it would take the wheels completely falling off. And if Rodgers implodes, then they nuke it. And then maybe, I guess it depends on how the players that we drafted do and how the team looks. Cause then I could see Douglas staying around a little bit longer, like maybe one extra year. I guess it's the end of his contract, so you'd have to extend him either way. You probably clean house overall. I don't particularly want to lose Joe Douglas. I think he's the best GM that I've seen with the New York Jets since I've been a fan. And that's, I understand his first draft was terrible. There's a lot of things that you don't like about it, but I'm more of a Douglas guy than I am a Saleh guy, but I think they're both comfortable, and I think they're both coming back for the next 2 years with this window.
Yeah, and I think if Rodgers comes back, everybody comes back, assuming they win at least 9-10 games to make the playoffs, everything else. I kind of think that. Now, with the Buffalo Bills trading Diggs, to me, which sent shockwaves because I was like, wow, he's still a great receiver, the chemistry, and they're still a top team in the AFC. Mm-hmm. Now it kind of, to me, in my Jet world, where I'm like, I gotta start buying into things now. Now we start convincing ourselves now, right? We gotta start buying back into all this stuff again. Where it's like, wow, the AFC East is wide open. New England's a complete rebuild. The Dolphins, great offense, but can they win on the road? Can they win in cold weather? What are they doing with Tua? Can you game plan against Tua now, where it's kind of like a blueprint out against him? And the Bills are losing a lot of players. Where I like their organization, I like their system, I like the coach, the quarterback, everything else, but they're taking a little step down now. Do you consider the AFC East truly up for grabs, or is Buffalo and Miami still a little step above everybody else?
So I think from a respect standpoint, you have to say all right, the Bills have won it the last, I think, 4 years in a row. Mm-hmm. So it's got to go through Buffalo. and Miami looked electric last year. Clearly that speed is going to be a problem, regardless of, who's really the quarterback back there. And I think, there's some things to be afraid of for those teams. But when you look at them, like you said, Buffalo took a big step back.
Yeah.
Miami, I think, took a big step back,
Yeah.
or even just a moderate step back. And the Jets added an all-pro left tackle. They're getting a 4-time MVP quarterback back. They added a top right tackle, and they got one of the best contested catch guys in the NFL, on top of adding a 10th overall pick talent to this team. So I think the Jets are just so much more improved compared to any of the other teams in our division that the AFC East is going to be the easiest way to get to the playoffs, especially when you consider Herbert's coming back, Burrow's coming back, Watson's coming back, the Texans look filthy. Like, there's a lot to like about some of the other teams in the AFC, and the division for me is the most likely route for us to the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Now, what are your expectations for Aaron Rodgers this year? Because last year, like we were talking, Garrett Wilson to the Pro Bowl, Breece Hall to the Pro Bowl, breaking every offensive record we have, and all these things. Do you think they scale back the offense a little bit where they actually feature Breece Hall? They feature the running game, not say legitimate ground and pound, but kind of maybe scale it in to keep him healthy for, say, 15 games this year?
I think that's exactly what they're going to do. I think bringing in Morgan Moses and John Simpson sort of imply a little shift in the mentality of how they're going to block up front, which is why I think Becton does make a little bit more sense right now as a backup, because he's not going to be asked to do quite as much. It's just like, hey, there's the guy in front of you, like, go beat the snot out of him.
Yep.
And if you do that, now you have a situation where, like, I think Breece Hall is going to go for 2,000 yards. I don't know if it's going to be 2,000 yards on the ground or just 2,000 like all-purpose yards, but he's absolutely going to cross that 2,000 threshold. And then I think Garrett could have, 15, 1,600 yards with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers really just has to be a top 15 quarterback.
Exactly.
And realistically, if he won MVP with dishing the ball, I think he had a average air ball of like 5.5 yards the last time he won MVP. So if he can do that here with our yak guys and Breece and Garrett and potentially a Bowers or something like that, I think, 4,500 yards and like 35 touchdowns isn't out of the realm of possibility. And I don't think he's going to throw 10 interceptions.
Yep. No, I agree. No, I think the same thing. I think it's just going to be a lot of running, keep it easy, keep him on the field, keep him healthy, quick, get rid of especially the offensive line's kind of, not where we want it to be. Get rid of the ball quickly. I have no faith in Hackett. I think I have more faith in Rodgers running the offense I do in Hackett.
For sure.
But the team on paper as they're set up, do you think they're better than last year? Same as last year? Like last year we talked about this team, man. We're like, 12 wins. We're going to do this. I had so much green Kool-Aid. It was out of my mind. But,
dude, we won 7 games with Zach Wilson at quarterback.
Yep.
So like, you're telling me going from like the worst quarterback in like NFL history going to Aaron Rodgers, that's 85% of what he was at one point. Yeah, I'm thinking as long as Rodgers stays healthy and like the main guys stay mostly healthy for the season, I think we're getting 12 wins.
Yeah, I think so. Now the one question I got to know this answer to. This has been bothering me. I think about this the entire offseason. How much time do you spend studying players like film, like college players and draft players? Because dude, stats, percentages, and it's not like you're reading a sheet like, all right, this guy's got that. No, this like this. So how much time do you spend like researching players?
So there's certain players that I kind of fall in love with, and there's other positions that I don't pay as much attention to. Like, I'd be lying if I said I knew a lot about the early safeties or the early linebackers, because that's just not where my head is at. Honestly, last year, Will McDonald, I had no idea who the hell he was. I was like, I'm not thinking edge rusher. We're talking before the draft stream, and we're like, hey, what's the one position we could take at 15 that you'd be upset with? I was like, oh, edge rusher, hands down. Like, we don't need it. Like, let's go weapon. We're going all in with Rodgers. So there is definitely positions that I don't follow as closely. And then I would say it skews towards parts of the draft that I do really like. So, running back, I'm not going to look super early on, but 4th round and beyond, I do like a few different backs there. The wide receivers, I've done a lot of research on that because I think the Jets could take a receiver in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round. I don't really know where it's going to go. The offensive linemen, I did a lot of research on those guys. And a lot of it is just, I try to make slides for all the different players. And because I talk about different mock drafts, I start to learn about the different guys throughout the off season. So I don't do a whole lot of research in season generally, especially like, when there's just so much Jet content to do, it's hard to commit that extra day. But going to try a little bit harder to have a better knowledge base going through the season of this year's college players. I don't know if that answers the question, but
But like, say for example, say for Odunze, like how many games would you sit back and watch and analyze? Would you say, you know what, I want against very good teams, I want to see them against bad teams? Like, how do you gauge your evaluation? Like, what games would you look for? How many games do you check them out on?
So I really start really paying close attention right around bowl season and really the tail end of the college football season, right when you get into like the late parts of November. I'll look and see like how they performed against good teams. I won't necessarily go back and watch every highlight and some evaluation of players. There's just better guys out there than myself. So I'll listen to opinions on, Joe Blewett or Dom C or some of those guys. They're really dialed in. And then I'll try to make an educated assessment based on how I feel about the player with that knowledge. So it's not all a full evaluation on my side, but I think just trying to utilize your resources that you have and make an educated, decision.
And now the more important question is, you're a family man, you're a working man, and you have 5,000 Jet shows. When do you find time to sleep, man? I don't know, because tell us your schedule, man. How do you arrange all this with all your shows that you're doing here?
It's absolutely chaotic. So. And luckily I've taken a little bit of a step back because I was doing a bunch of stuff with the AFC East Roundtable guys and Roundtable Sports, and I was producing some shows for them. And now that we got to the offseason, that kind of subsided. We started launching the Talkin' Jets shows, and I do 1 hour with Dom C on Monday nights from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock talking about the Jets draft. Then from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I flip over and I do my call-in show. And then Tuesday we do our Talkin' Jets panel, so that's 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Now, in my own career, I work in golf, and I've been a director of golf for the last 6 years. I oversaw 27 holes of golf, and I stepped back in August because I had my second kid. So I have 2 kids under 2. They're 13 and a half months apart, which is friggin' chaos. So from a sleep perspective, I don't get much of it. I'll be up. I'm a lot of the like overlays or like stats or like graphics that I build. It's all built like in the middle of the night. Like I'm up till 3 a.m. sometimes. But my new job that I'm in, I'm doing like 3 or 4 days a week, and I'm not overseeing a 60-person staff anymore. I'm just I pushed off a lot of the responsibility to give it a little bit more focus on family and some of the Jets content. Now, of course, I stepped down from my position as like 2 weeks before Aaron Rodgers pops his Achilles. So that was a swift gut punch. I'm not gonna lie, but it's a lot. It's a lot of I'm a dad first. I'm dad and husband first. But I love it. I look at Jets stuff, whether they're winning or losing or anything. So I don't view this as work necessarily. It's cool that people tune in and want to have discussions. Like we got like 130 some odd people in here right now, just shooting the shit. It's great.
Yeah, I love it. And it's like all across the world. That's the best part about Jet fans. It's like you get messages from like Australia, Spain, like California. You're like, what in the hell? I think it's so cool, and it's just a lot of fun. You guys do a great job, man. Like it's like what you guys do is so impressive, and your knowledge and how you communicate to everybody. And you're having a draft party too, right? You're having a draft party. Yeah, I didn't get no. Where's my invite at?
You come on out. We're going to Long Island. We got the main event, the first night of the NFL draft. TalkinJets.com if you'd like to get tickets. We have to let the main event know by Tuesday how many people we're bringing, and it should be a good time. We got 3-hour open bar, buffet. We're gonna figure out a way to do a crowd cam so that way we're not the only jackasses that have our faces like, oh no, what do you mean Will McDonald? It's like, no, let's see all you guys out there. I've seen my clips plastered all over Twitter. I'm like, oh, see what they said for that player. Kick rocks. I'm gonna be authentic. You're gonna know exactly how I'm feeling when I feel it. And I don't know. It's cool. It's a good time. I think my favorite part about meeting people is like, when you get the guy that's overseas, serving in the military, and he comes home and he's like, hey, dude, this was one thing that kept me grounded, out in, in the Middle East or wherever they're deployed. And I think that's really cool to see. Or guys that move from the Jersey, New York area, they're out in California or Texas, and they're like, I just don't have a family. But here we're talking with the chat, we're talking with everyone, from across the country, and it's cool, the community that we built.
Yeah, no, it's wild, dude. Especially when you go to games and meet people and they tell you stories. They tell you from the chat and this and that, and from the game stream. And it's just like, wow, like you don't even realize because like we just kind of just talk and we don't care. And it's just like, and like, oh, like you said, like, oh, you occupy my time when I'm going through some stuff. I'm like, I never even thought of it like that before, to be honest with you. It's pretty crazy.
No, I never have. And you know, honestly, for myself, this is therapeutic. And especially going through like COVID and everything, where you're just a little bit more, you know, drawn back from just hanging out with people in general. It was a nice way to escape and find some common ground with people. Cause I feel like so much stuff nowadays is so divisive. I try to stay off of like social media as best I can.
Me too.
And like I literally my personal stuff, I don't even look at anymore. I only stay in the Jets world and like people comment and send stuff back and forth. And I feel like that's the spot that, you know, I really love to be in. And I think it's funny when we're just sitting in the, you know, at a tailgate or something. And it's like, hey, I'm, you know, Dick Chimney's burner or whatever. And it, like, that's his, you know, name that you just know him by in the chat. But it's like, oh, hey, I'm Steve. Yeah. Like, oh, hey, like, that's cool. Like, I'm glad you hang out. You know, it's cool. Cause it's like, we have a relationship, but it's more with a username as opposed to like a face. And it's fun. I really enjoy it.
Try being a part of this channel. We have all these Muppets. We got puppets. We got all kinds of cartoon characters. Like, and they walk up, dude. They walk up like, hey, I'm Big Bird. I'm like, what? Like, oh, cool. Like, it's great. It's just it's like, this is awesome. So,
dude, there's some wild people in the chat. I had one kid call into my my call-in show probably 2-3 weeks ago now. I think he was a Dolphins fan. And he like was trying to like prank me. And he, you know, I open up the window and it's like just a door frame. And this kid comes screaming into like the room. And he like bites a raw potato and is pouring a can of like a bottle of Pepsi on his head. And I was like, you think I'm going to eject you, but I'm going to wait till that Pepsi's done pouring on your head. Then I'm going to eject you. So like, yeah, we got some characters. You have to be a character if you're a Jet fan. I mean, we're just like, we love the abuse at this point.
Dude, our offseason was wild, man. All kinds of people popping up. We had like Saleh impersonations, Douglas impersonations, Woody Johnson. It's just like you never know what to expect. And like you, dude, I embrace the chaos. Like I love it. You want to pull some crazy nonsense? I'm here for it. It's supposed to be fun. Like it's like an escape from like the real world for a while. So it's like any kind of chaos, I'm all down for it at this point.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everyone's got to have like that little bit of like a laugh. And when people take anything too seriously, it's not as fun. So just have fun within reason.
So now you're in golf. You got a Masters prediction for us or what?
Dude, I've had it on. I did what did I do? I filmed 2 videos and I was on a stream earlier today and I had the Masters playing. Honestly, I have to go back and recap it because I've been just not watching enough of it. But I'm off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so I can watch the whole thing. Unfortunately, my wife's uncle is getting married on Sunday, so I can't watch the end of the Masters. It's like, son of a bitch. Yeah, whatever. It's all right. I got YouTube TV on the phone.
You pull the phone out, like little walk to the bathroom and then go to the bar real quick.
Yep.
Well, Ryan, first of all, it's been so long, man. I appreciate your time, especially it's freaking 10 o'clock at night. So, and I love all your content. You guys kick ass, man. Seriously, I watch all you guys stuff. Now, tell everybody, they know who you are, but where they can find you and when. You said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You're all over the place.
Yeah, you know, Jets Talk 24/7, always doing some kind of live stream or show or something along those lines. If you guys like the Every Throw videos, if you haven't checked those out, I try to put out an Every Throw video for whoever our quarterback is. Hopefully it's going to be Aaron Rodgers this year. It's a quick, dissection of everything. I'll be doing breakdowns of the players, give you my thoughts on different things that are, interesting to me. It may not be like the popular trending opinion, but, I'll give you my honest one.
No, that's fair. I love that. And it's like you keep it real too. And you have all the fancy designs and the logos. You have the freaking rooster too, which I love that thing. You got all kinds of.
I love my chicken. It's great.
And just so everybody knows, Ryan is my personal IT help. So even though I still have a primitive setup, just the fact that I have this shit right now is all thanks to you. You gave me the camera, the light, the this. I don't know anything. You help me. You bail me out every time.
Dude, anytime you need any sort of help, I'm always here to listen and pick your brain. I genuinely love coming on and talking to you. Like, for those of you guys that don't know, we'll do like an hour stream and we wind up talking for like an hour after the stream. And it's like, I guess we could have just kept going.
It's so funny because like I'll ask you the most basic question. I'm like, Ryan, I can't figure out this goddamn camera. Dude, just press this button. There we go. Problem solved.
It's all right. It takes some time to learn. And, if you're not, I went to school for film, so I've got a little bit of a baseline of knowledge for some of this stuff. So if I can help you out, it's a good thing.
You can help me. You can help anybody at this point. So Make sure you guys follow. Well, you guys have all followed them. Go to the draft party too. I might have to go check this out. It's on Thursday night, right?
Thursday night, Long Island, main event.
3 hours open bar.
3-hour open bar.
Any hotels close by?
Fuck if I know. I'm driving home. I do not want to be. I'd rather drive. I think in the middle of the night and get home than it's like a 2-hour drive for me too.
Oh,
and,
no kidding.
Yeah, I'm on the North Jersey side of things. I was like, oh, Leary, you always come out here for the Jet games. I'll make the trip over that way. Greenbeat's coming up from Virginia. He's driving like 7 hours. I know he's staying up this way. I don't know if he's staying at a hotel or like family's house.
Nice. Well, check these guys out. Draft party, and then once this draft is over, down the line, we'll do a recap and get your thoughts on all the players and your season predictions and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to have you over on the channel too. We got to talk some ball over there.
Yeah, the one time we took calls, who was the guy that called in? I forget the. He comes on this show. He's not Charles. Charles, I think.
Charles? Yeah. Oh, I know Charles well.
And it's like
he's always the first caller.
But the best thing is, like, our show. You know, our show's crazy, dude. We just go off the rails, and you stay so composed. You're like, relax, this and that. I'm like ready to explode. I'm like, how is he so composed? Like, what the like?
Oh, Charles will start talking about movies. Him and I'm a big Godzilla guy, so like, we'll talk monster movies, superhero movies, but I only give him 3 minutes, and then I eject him. I was like, get out of here! Boom.
It's funny. Next week. Like I'm sitting, I'm turning purple watching him. Like, how's he not saying nothing? Like, I would just because over here we just rip everybody, and then the chat will be like, "Do you see he's got a puppet in the back? I'm sitting on his bureau." I'm like, what? Ridiculous.
Yeah, no. They occasionally, every now and then, I'll get like fired up about someone, but more often than not, I'll be like, "All right, let's see what you got to say," and then I'll try to think of it in the most positive spin possible.
Not this show's just the chat goes off the rails. They find little things to pick on, like your light is crooked, shut your door, this. It's just like, oh my god. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Thank you, dude. Thank you for your time, man. I definitely appreciate it. And then once this is all over, we'll do it again.
Hell yeah, looking forward to it.
Have a good night, everybody.